Good evening. Aim low. Hey, Carrie. Korea DMZ. Philly. Hey, Steve. Lafayette. Cmmg Canada, how goes it, eh? Maryland. Victor, New York. Pittsburgh.
Gun channels being, what do we think about gun channels being recently demonetized? When
Been
were
going on for-
when were they monetized? I think they were monetized about 3-4 years ago, right when we started with our original channel, and that lasted about 2 months before everything came down.
We are Penn State.
We make about $150 a month in ad revenue on YouTube.
Yeah,
So
nothing.
I wouldn't even qualify that as making anything.
Jesus Christ, he's out of Scotland.
Oh, we want to go to Scotland so bad. We talk about it all the time.
I know, kidding.
And
I'm talking about
we've
it.
done both of us have done our DNA. I'm like apparently 60% Scottish, and he's, what are you, 20% now?
More than that.
No, I think yours is pretty low. Look at that. I got all the good Scottish DNA and the Texan DNA.
I got the red beard.
That is true, though. You got me on there. No, Scotland's looks amazing.
Is very disrespectful, isn't she?
Oh my God. People are like, thank God I tuned in tonight. I want to listen to Chris do his Scottish impersonation. Okay, guys, we're gonna kick it off. If you would like to ask a question, you can put it into the chat, and we will try to stay in order as best as possible. But normally there's a lot of people in here, so sometimes I do kind of bounce around. We don't take just paid questions, but obviously it's important to support our 2A channels and keep SAS going, and because we don't do sponsorships of any kind. You can do that by hitting the $, and just like that, one donation just came through, it'll be bannered, and you'll get priority over the other questions, and be able to skip the line of whatever order I'm currently in. We prefer donor box. There's a link on smallarmsolutions.com. Donor box only takes about 3 to 5%. Google takes a whopping 30% of your donation. So more goes to SAS if you go to donor box, and then you can just put your question in the comment section of the donation. And I have my phone, and you'll get an email, and it'll be the same thing.
We got a Racine, Wisconsin in here. I actually really miss Tenuta's out of Racine. That's actually more the Kenosha area, but yeah, that was a place we used to go all the time just for my Italian food.
Now, you're talking about Kenosha, and then I'm going to get shit later about how this chat was not as many questions as normal. It was too much banter. Dude, we got to have fun occasionally on here. Oh, you got a beer too. He's got beer. I got wine tonight. We're set. Let's get through a bunch of questions. Steve is up first. He donated earlier on Donor Box, and he said the Smith & Wesson MP10 Chris recently reviewed had a factory firing pin spring installed. Is that design a just standard AR-10 firing pin with a spring added? Or is there any other manufacturers using that simple type of firing pin spring on their AR-10 and the AR-15 firing pin?
Yeah, the first time I saw that was Mark Westrom's Armalites. You see that. You'll see that there are several companies that do it. The reason being is because you're looking at rifles that are using match ammunition, a lot of that match ammunition has match primers. Match primers are not mil-spec; they're much lighter, and that prevents you from having slam fires. But it's not all that uncommon.
Okay, Kevin on DonorBox. Thank you, Kevin. He said there are some Glock 17 and 19 pistols that have a higher amount of sheared metal primer material in the striker channel compared to similar Glock pistols that are using the same ammunition. The primer shear marks are different compared to the other pistols that do not experience the same problem. These same pistols are piercing primers and gas eroding the nose of the striker. The strikers are replaced only to have the same pierced primers, gas erosion, and primer shear symptoms, which should be checked to find the root cause of the odd primer shear marks and other symptoms.
What it sounds like, there's something in the way that the firing pin's moving too far forward. So I would try replacing the entire assembly, and if the entire striker assembly. And if you're still seeing that, my guess is the slot, the striker has to slam up against the piece on the slide, and that's what stops the forward motion of that striker. And if that's is drilled or is cut too deep, it's allowing the primer to go too far forward. And that unfortunately, there's no way around that. That's something that needs to go back to Glock. But shear is completely normal in Glocks. I've seen tens of thousands of images of fire cartridge cases in my forensic days with Glock. Now, the new Gen 5s use a different shaped firing pin. Instead of using, we refer to the Glock Gens 1 through 4 is a elliptical firing pin. And then the Gen 5s now use a hemispherical firing pin. But you will still see shear and you will still see drag.
We got Fond du Lac, Wisconsin in here too.
Oh, really?
I haven't seen these names in a long time. That was an interesting 5 years.
How Lance is doing.
That was an interesting 5 years of our life living in Milwaukee. Gregory wants to know the Robinson Arms XCRL uses an AK style bolt and extractor. Is it okay to shoot steel cased ammo out of it like you can with an AK?
Oh, sure. Like I said, but to tell you the truth, for a gun like that, that's a very expensive rifle. I wouldn't shoot that kind of shit ammo out of it. The other thing is too with shooting that ammunition, you're going to have to open the gas port up quite a bit because there's a lower port pressure, on that steel case ammunition. But certainly it won't hurt the gun. You're just not going to get the potential out of the gun for accuracy.
Ryan wants to know, I built a M4 type rifle with a BCM upper, a FNH chrome lined button barrel, and a Colt BCG. Do you think that's good?
Oh, certainly. You got all the good parts in there.
What are your thoughts on the Colt 6933?
It's excellent. It's just a Colt Commando. The 6933 11.5-inch barrel. It's certainly better than the SOCOM barrel, which is a 10.3. The longer you get of a distance between the gas port to the muzzle, the more dwell time you get, the better it is for reliability. So it's definitely better than the Mark 18 barrel as far as reliability.
Great to see you guys. I look forward to every Thursday night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When and in what should subsonic ammo be used? Is it for older pistols in this case or suppressed weapons?
Oh, it has nothing to do with anything other than suppressed. Subsonic, as I said, it's a lower. It's what keeps it below the speed of sound for use with suppressors. So there's no specific pistol. It's just another kind of ammunition. It's designed specifically for suppressed ammunition.
I haven't had a troll in a while. We're already kicking it off. Oh, he's out. Seconds. Know you're a fan of LMT. Do you prefer carbine or full-length MRP uppers? Seems like benefits of monolithic would be seen on the longer handgun, but at the expense of shorter barrel lengths.
I like the CQB versions myself. I don't own any of the longer ones. The barrels I'm using are short barrels, and if you go with the longer barrel, you're going to have it inside the handguard, and I don't care for that. If I was going to go with a 20-inch barrel, I would certainly want the full MRP, but myself personally, I just stick with the CQBs.
What is the proper buffer weight for the Colt LE 6933, and would an H work well?
H. That's what it would come with from the factory. Would be an H.
Colt AR-15 with military restricted mark value and all evil features. What is the value?
You know what? That's really hard to say now because there's two lines of thought here. You have your collectors now who would want that because those are generally the ones that have all the Colt parts, and I've seen them going on Gunbroker for over 2,000. Then other people will say, "Well, I can go out for 1,100 and buy one of the new CR 6920s as a shooter." They don't. They really don't care. So the reality is, you have to find the right person who wants the older rifle, and it'll be probably worth well over $2,000 to them, because it was back when Colt was making all the guns pretty much in house.
Waiting for Caracal 814 to get back in stock, contemplating Daniel Defense, Mlock Omega Free Float, Carbine Handguard, $180. Am I wasting money?
You said Caracal?
Yeah.
That's a proprietary handguard. Leave it alone. That Caracal will come with.
Well, he said he's contemplating the Daniel Defense Mlock Omega Free Float Carbine Handguard.
You can't. He's not going to be able to put anything onto that Caracal. That's what I mean. If you're buying that for the Caracal is a proprietary handguard. It comes with it'll come with Mlock. So yeah, there's no compatibility. If you have the oh, I'm sorry, you said 814. 814. 814. I'm trying to remember. Actually, I think that'll be fine for the 814. It's a standard upper receiver. I would have to check on that to be sure. I have a video on the 814 series. Take a look at it because Caracal does use a receiver that has a notch cut in it for it's free. Their handguard to fit into. Check out my video. Unfortunately, that's not popping up in my brain right now. If that's going to require that or not.
Carrie wants to know if you want to try haggis.
I've tried probably worse things overseas.
I know. I don't know. I've heard that's really bad, though. I think they had it, though, at the Epcot Food and Wine Festival once, though.
I think it's just the texture that probably would get me.
Wasn't it like a variety of different things, too?
It's kidneys, lungs, and all that kind
of stuff. Americans are just not good with that stuff. How do you feel now that Texas is going to be a constitutional carry state?
This is freedom. This is freedom down here. This is what this country is supposed to be. My wife, I still want her to get her CHL because if she wants to travel outside of the state, you will need that CHL.
Well, correction, I did do the class and I passed and I have my paperwork and everything. I just haven't gone to file it.
Yeah, you need to file it. Our governor also stopped. There's no fees now for doing it.
Oh, wow.
So that's awesome. I think it's awesome. It's like I said, this state here, they honor the Constitution. I was just watching some of the hearing where they're interviewing the chosen one for ATF, and that guy is scary as hell to the Second Amendment. He is as anti-Second Amendment as they come. Senator Cruz, really brought this guy's colors out of what he wants to do. He wants to make every AR-15 or that type of rifle all NFA items. He's all for confiscation, so we better hope that they don't get this asshole and he doesn't get approved.
Thoughts on the Psa Dagger?
I have to ask myself why, because all it is an 80% Glock with those parts. So it's something that anybody can make if they want them themselves. I don't. It's something they could make. It would be very hard to screw up because it is a Glock. Good luck finding them. God knows when you're going to see them. I don't know. I just don't really think that it was a wise move on PSA's part because the market's flooded with them. And there's nothing special about it. It's an 80% Glock.
I'm going to be losing my spot a lot tonight, guys. So if you hear me pausing, it's because I'm trying to roll back up and find my spot. But I'm going to have to be diligent at staying at the bottom of this chat because it seems like we're getting hit tonight.
Hey, Brent.
I'm considering building an SPR. Is it worth it to get a Centurion Mark 12 barrel with OPS incorporated collar, or should I save the money and get something else and use my silencer co-suppressor?
Well, obviously, if you go with the OpSync mounts, you have to buy one of the proper suppressors, which comes out of Allen Engineering. I would recommend you get something where you can use your silencer co, because you're going to end up buying a suppressor where that's going to be the only gun you can use the suppressor on. You're better off getting one and putting like a silencer co AS. If you're using silencer co like I do, just getting an ASR mount, and then that way you can use the same suppressor on multiple guns. I definitely recommend you getting your barrel from Monty over at Centurion Arms. I've got one of his rifles, and they shoot beautifully. But I probably would get away from the OpSync unless you're planning on going and buying, a dedicated Allen Engineering suppressor for it.
Do you think the Glock rifle is the real deal, or will we ever see it?
All we've seen so far is a patent. Now, there's a lot of patents that are filed that never even come to fruition. They just patent them, so if anybody else wants to use it, they got to pay the company. So when we're going to see it, I have no idea. I remember years and years ago when people were first asking Gaston Glock about it, he said he will not release a rifle unless it's as reliable as his carbine. And those of you who understand weapons design, it's very hard to get a rifle as reliable as a properly made pistol. I don't know. The Glock will be entering a saturated market, and there's plenty of weapons platforms out there that are already proven. So it would be something to have to prove itself, and you're going to have your fanboys just because it's a Glock product, they'll buy it. But it's preliminary for as far as I'm concerned right now, of just being patented. Or patent pending, excuse me.
With all the problems Grand Thumb had with the PSA 74, what do you think that they are doing wrong?
He did not have any problems with it at all. The gun never malfunctioned. Everything that Grand Thumb was saying was based off of what he thinks may happen, and what basically the guy from Rifle Dynamics, what he thought might happen. He never had one malfunction with the gun. He was wear patterns on those I've seen on. I have. And the pattern in the wear that he's talking about is from where over the top. That's a normal phenomenon that happens. So, if you really watch that video, he didn't have any problems. He never had a malfunction with that gun. He said it was accurate. He said it wasn't a go-to gun, yet it never malfunctioned. So, the only issues that I had with it was I had some pierced primers, and that was taken care of relatively quickly. But if you really watch that video, it was all speculative of what could happen. Nothing was wrong with the rifle. He never had any malfunctions with it.
Don't forget to hit the like button, guys. Will a standard A2 sight fit on a Mark 12 barrel? Did we do that one?
A2 sight.
Will a standard A2 sight fit on a Mark 12 barrel?
Well, the Mark 12s don't have front sight bases on them. They have gas blocks. The front sights are detachable. So I guess I need to know more what you mean. I mean, if you can use a detachable carrying handle on a Mark 12, yes, you'd have to have the detachable front sight on the end of the handguard. So you can use backup sights on it, yes, if that's what you're asking. But a regular sight would go in a M4 carrying handle, which no, it wouldn't unless you an upper receiver that has a field.
Chance to see the Geisley URGI and is it clone? Are there other options?
I don't have any contacts who assist me at Geisley. I've tried after Bill Geisley stepped away from the company. I have not been able to get parts. I do hope to get my hands on some parts someday to take a look at, but as of now, I have had no luck.
Is reducing the gas port size a possible way to reduce the harshness of the M855A1 on the rifle's components?
Reduction of port size will let less gas in. You still have a very high high chamber pressure. There's two different kinds of pressure you have to talk about. You have to talk about chamber pressure and port pressure. And the gas port pressure is only one. It's only one of the factors. So not really. You're still going to have that massive chamber pressure. 63 to 64,000 psi versus 55,000 psi in chamber pressures. And considering that a proof load is 70,000 psi, so 64,000 to 70,000, when the actual spec for the MA55 is 52 to 55,000 psi.
Can you do some Larue tactical product reviews?
I have tried to, but Larue, I've never been able to get any product from them. They had told me a couple years ago at the SHOT Show that they were not set up for T&Es. I guess I could probably try them again, but it's funny, even though they're in Texas here, I couldn't get them to send me anything for T&E. I'd like to hear a lot about them, but again, I'm not going to give you guys an opinion on something that I don't have experience with.
Is 9x18 MAK sufficient for self-defense cartridge, or should I stick with normal 9mm instead of carrying my P64 pistol?
Stay with a 9x19, 9mm Luger. 9x17, 9x18, you just got a little bit larger, of a little bit more pressure. It's still low enough where it's good to where you can use them in a blowback. To me, I would want to stay with the 9x19.
Looking at buying an S&W AR-15, what's your opinion on this rifle?
They're decent. They're a good low budget rifle. You know, they're certainly gotten better over the years. I think for the price, it's probably a decent deal.
I bet about 6 I've kicked out already.
Wow.
Yeah, tonight's hot. There's band hammer boom. Is there a commercially available chrome line barrel for HK's MR556 rifle?
Yes, it's by Brownells. I did believe Brownells was chrome lined. Actually, no, that was nitride. That was not chrome plated, I don't believe. Not that I'm aware of. I know the only person that made any of those extra barrels I know was Brownells, but I do believe those were nitride.
Would you trust your life to a Cmmg Mark 47 Mutant?
Yeah, I've never had one malfunction. They've worked reliably. I've had 3 of them to review in my career. Every one of them is very, very nice. The only problem with it is the proprietariness of the parts. It's something that you would have to have spare parts laying around because you couldn't get them from anybody else other than Cmmg. That's the one issue I had with them. That's actually why I do like believe it or not, the KS47. The KS47, for as far as ARs to take AKs, for as far as I'm concerned, is probably the nicest one out there of all the ones I've tested. And I have a video out there that I compare the Mark 47 to the LAR 47 to the KS 47 and to the Wind and Weaponry MHS or MWS, and it came out the best one for magazine interchangeability and accuracy was the KS 47. Believe it or not, that is one gun that PSA did their work on.
What do you think of Larue triggers?
Never had one. As I said, I've never had access to any of the Larue parts.
What do you think of Retro Colt XM16E1?
If I was to buy one, I would strip the receiver, take mine, which I have here, which are all original 1966-65 parts, and put it on it. That's what I think of it. The way that it's set up, they're not factory original parts, none of them. They're not made by Colt. The price is outrageous. The only thing that's worthwhile on that gun would be the strip lower receiver with the Colt head stamp on them and the proper rib for the front pivot pin. That's about what I think about it. The price is just that is my favorite rifle in the entire family of weapons. The XM16E1. That is my favorite. Absolute. I have 2 of them. I have one of the Brownells, and I have one of them that I built up on a no deck with all original Colt parts. I look at the Colt and say, I wouldn't mind the lower receiver, but everything else I would trash.
Yeah, just bear with me tonight, guys. Sorry, unfortunately, somebody is targeting the channel, and that's what I'm here for. So, you know what I say to them? Bring it. That's what I'm here for.
While she's
keep taking you out.
While she's sniping, potentially next week you will have the video on the firearms evidence in the JFK assassination. So I am working on that one right now. It's going to be a longer one. It's going to be a little complex, but I will give you, my take as a forensic expert, somebody who actually knew one of the guys who examined the evidence, and my any inside information that I may have because of that contact. Hopefully, you guys will find that interesting.
I am banning him, but that doesn't mean that they can't set up new accounts and come back in. So I have to keep re-banning them, the new account.
It takes dedication.
Well, that's what I'm here for. That's why I say bring it. You're not going to ruin my night. I'm over here drinking wine. I'm fine. Do you have any source for SIG 516 parts? I know it is still in use by some military LEOs, but SIG shows no commercial parts available.
Fortunately, the only parts that are proprietary is the upper receiver, the barrel, and the gas system, and the bolt carrier. Fortunately, the bolt and the lower receiver parts are pretty much all standard.
Yeah, we have a couple of new videos that I've encouraged Chris to make. Encouraged meaning I've twisted his arm and said, you will make these. MR73 is overpriced or the best? 357 Magnum.
MR73.
Yeah, it's like, this is his question. It's kind of all jumbled together.
I'm not familiar with the MR73.
Okay, Joey on DonorBox wants to know if firing a Mil-Spec semi-auto AR-15 at a sustained rate of 60 rounds per minute, what would be the first thing to fail, and how many rounds would it take for that failure to occur?
Well, the first thing that's going to fail would be the gun would overheat. That would be a failure to extract. As long as the parts were made properly, and God, on semi-automatic at that sustained rate, that would take a little while. I couldn't really actually give you a time, but what's gonna stop it's gonna be overheating.
What is your opinion of Faxon's carbon fiber handguards?
They're certainly nice. I have yet to use any carbon fiber on anything that I've done. It's just not something that I use. Not that there's anything wrong with them. It's just I tend to like to stick with aluminum.
Is nitrating as good as chrome lining in terms of barrel life and durability?
That's a big question. You have proponents on either side. My opinion is the chrome gives you a 3 times harder than standard barrel steel. It offers you more corrosion resistance. It also, as it heats up, you get better lubricity out of it. My opinion, a chrome-plated barrel is better than a nitride. If you look at what Mil-Spec still state that's what it is for any military. I've yet to see a military that I've seen where they allow or have adopted nitrided barrels.
Do you subscribe to any break-in procedures on stainless barrels, particularly for the PA-10?
I only have one rifle that I've ever done that with. That was my SR-25. And that was over 30 years ago. And that was because I worked with, one of the guys I knew was a match shooter, and I had to clean every round, and every other round, then every 10 rounds, and then you get to every 20 rounds. Since then, I have not ever broken in a barrel. The key to them was not to get them too hot. So you have a very low rate of fire. And then, I've worked with a lot of snipers all over the world, and everybody has their own super secret way that they do it. I knew snipers. Actually, one of the guys in Afghanistan. He would clean his rifle. He would fire a fouling shot, and that's how he would carry the gun. He never would carry a completely clean gun. He always fired a fouling shot. I know other guys who, they would clean, but they wouldn't remove the copper. They would just remove the propellant residues. And some guys who would clean every other shot, some every 10 shots, some every 20 shots. There's no standardized way of doing it. Everybody has their own ways to do it. And a lot of what I did was I taught people how to clean weapons. And one of the things I learned very quickly is I'm not going to tell a sniper how to clean his rifle because they all have their own way of doing it. I can say this is what I do, but it's something that each guy does their own way. Thanks for another laugh.
Yeah, I just found the guy who was impersonating us saying, "Why are you impersonating Small Arms Solutions?" Because they're not very smart. He actually has a video that talks about it's a compilation of how many times you say actually. Can you imagine spending that much effort?
No.
And then he goes on to say some other stuff. He apparently posted a year ago. So just block him. Oh, get a life, buddy. Will you have any Larue tactical? We've done
Yeah, we get that asked a lot. As I said, I have
know.
not had
I
access
feel
to
like I'm
any of
getting
those
that
guns.
a bunch tonight too. Building an MRP 16-inch 5.56 is a heavy buffer fine.
You would either need an H or an H2 depending on what your ammunition is. LMT barrels that they sell commercially are generally overgassed. And it's overgassed, so you guys who like to use your cheap Wolf ammunition with the low port pressures will still work. In order to get it to work with that, means you have to open up the gas port, which means when you put military issue 5.56, it's going to be faster. So basically, you're going to have to look at what ammunition that you're using, and you adjust it around that. Say, if you were using standard 5.56 ammunition, I'd start off with an H, take a look at your pattern, and if it's still going at 1 o'clock, I go to an H2. LMT's military guns are different because those are gas specifically for 5.56 NATO, which you adjust from there. But again, when you're having this cheap ammunition, it causes manufacturers to modify their guns so they're not optimal with the proper ammunition that they're designed for.
Which would you choose to protect your family, the Glock 17 Gen 5 or SIG M17?
I own both. To be heroically honest with you, I wouldn't have a problem with either one. I wouldn't have a problem with either one. The gun that I sleep next to is a Glock, but it's a 45 gap. It's a G38. But I have no issue with either one of those. Again, I own both of them.
Does Wilson Combat make good AR rifle barrels?
Yes, they do. There's a lot of good barrels that are out there. It depends on what you're looking for. If you want a combat barrel, you want a match barrel, you want a lightweight barrel. There's just a lot of different types of barrels out there. It just depends on what you want.
Adnan owner box. Thank you,
Adnan.
Adnan. He said, "Don't have any questions for tonight. Just wanted to send my support. Thank you so
sir.
much."
Means a lot. Thank you.
Abram on donor box says, "Have you shot a Wilson Combat AR? And if so, what is your opinion?"
I've only shot one very, very briefly. One of the sheriff's departments at one of my armorers class, they had Wilson Combat Mark 18 type rifles. I just put a couple rounds through them. It wasn't enough to give you any kind of evaluation. I will say that they replaced Colt 6933s. They replaced those Wilsons replaced 6933s that I sold that sheriff's department when I worked for Colt. So that sheriff's department must think they're better.
Thoughts on the current suppressor legislation in the Texas legislature?
It's awesome because I live here. What he's referring to is
I'm not up
what
on
he's
it.
referring to is now any suppressor made in Texas does not require it to go on the NFA. As long as the suppressor was made here and stays here, you don't have to get it registered.
Interesting. I mean, I think it's kind of dumb that you have to register one anyway.
Yeah, it is.
Opinion of ballistic advantage barrels.
I have not used them. Well, that's actually not true. I have used them once or twice, but it's never been enough to give you guys any kind of a real. I don't believe they're worth the money, but I guess I haven't shot them extensive.
How can I positively determine if my old 6945 has a CHF barrel? The bayonet lug is shaved.
Say that again.
How can I positively determine if my old 6945 has a CHF barrel? The bayonet lug is shaved.
Oh, it won't. It won't. No Colt barrel is whole hammer forged. Let me tell you something about the bayonet lug on the 6900 or 6940 series. As per the drawings, everything but the 10.3 and the 11.5 barrels are supposed to have bayonet lugs on them. However, what Colt tends to do is whatever parts they have in stock, they make. For instance, my first 6944 barrel I got, upper receiver I got, did not have a bayonet lug. It really pissed me off because it was supposed to have one called Colt. Well, that's just how we make some of them. They wouldn't think they wouldn't replace it. So fortunately, I was able to sell that off and then buy another one that had it on it. Colt tends to do, even though their bill of materials may say one thing, that they will use their whatever parts that they have on hand at the time. So that's why you may get one 6944 with it and one without it. It just depends on what parts they happen to have in stock. They don't really care what their bill of material says. They just want to get guns out. But Colt has never, ever had a Colt Hammer forged barrel. Colt Canada has, but not Colt Defense.
Reviews of the EOTech G45 have mixed reviews. Do you think it still has some kinks to work out?
It's funny that you're mentioning that. I'm trying to get my hands on one right now. I just have attempted to order one. Again, I like to be able to tell you from my own experience. I read the same stuff that you do, and a lot of stuff that I read, I don't trust anyways. I like to do my own testing, and I'm trying to get one right now. And if I get one, I can get some time with it. I'll revisit that question.
Thank you, Ninja.
We intend to.
Have you guys got any of those T65s to review?
265.
T65s.
T65, not yet. I will be. Yeah, I've got William making one for me.
Are Colt SOCOM 14.5-inch barrels the best all-around barrels?
Yes, I believe that the SOCOM barrel, you want to say with a 14.5-inch barrel, it's the ideal barrel. That is the current military issue barrel. There are no more M4s being purchased. It's all M4A1s with that barrel. That barrel is what turns this from a light duty weapon or a personal defense type weapon into an assault rifle. As the M4 was developed with a lightweight barrel, it was designed to take the carbine role for the guy who needed more firepower than a pistol but couldn't carry the long weight of a rifle, like somebody in a support position. And then that rifle was put into service as a general infantry rifle. Was not designed for it. That barrel was too light. That's why you've heard about all the situations with the barrel overheating and malfunctions being caused. Once they changed that barrel to their SOCOM barrel, those problems all went away, and that turned the M4 rifle into an ideal infantry rifle.
If reverse engineering is acceptable for reproducing firearms like the AR-15, why can't it be done on the Glock?
It has been. If you look at all these people who've reproduced parts and everything like that, I can guarantee you Glock's not giving their technical drawings to anybody. You look at all the people who are making their pistol, making their slides, making frames, the 80% that you just drop Glock type parts in. People who've replaced, the Glock has been completely and totally reverse engineered. That's where all the support stuff comes from.
Is it normal for the upper and lower receivers to have a little wobble? I value your opinion the most out of all the gun guys on YouTube.
Yes. If you look at Colts, for instance, Mil-Spec, you have a plus and minus for the opening on the lower receiver and a plus and minus on the upper receiver. Those parts have to consistently interchange. So if you have one that's on the higher end and one that's on the lower end, you're going to have a really nice tight fit. If you have two that are on the higher end, it have a little bit of wobble. You have some kind of, every time you have interchangeability, it's hard to have parts that are snug. That's why you see Colt or military rifles often that do have a little bit of a wobble in there. It's because you have to have that interchangeability. When you have commercial rifles that are made to their own specs where they can keep those tolerances tighter, that's always nice. But when you're looking at say an upper receiver made in 1965 and you're putting it on a Colt M4 lower receiver in 2021 and they fit and they work, you may have a little bit of wobble, but they will work. So that's all part of the interchangeability. Is you do have a little bit of tolerance area you can play with in there, so the parts will interchange.
Dave on DonorBox, I asked Chris this question, but this one seems like it's a little different variation, so I'll just read it again. If reverse engineering is acceptable for reproducing firearms like the AR-15 or 1911, What prevents a small company to produce a Glock?
They do. If you look at what PSA is doing with their Dagger, they are. It's just under a different name, and it's their own reverse engineered parts. If there's no patent, if the patents are up or whatever, then it's free. It's free game for anybody to reverse engineer. So so anything that you see, and you look at AKs, every AK you're seeing made here in the U.S. that's not made up of a parts kit is reverse engineered. That's common. Glock's been around. I think a lot of their patents are up, so people can reverse engineer those all they want.
Is Rock River a good AR? I hear they use commercial spec buffer tubes.
I don't recall what their buffer tubes are, but they are excellent guns. I have reviewed 3 or 4. I did a 5.56. I did a 6.8. I did their 7.62x39. Yeah, I've done 3, and all the rifles that I tested were excellent. In fact, you can go and you can find those videos on all 3 of those. Very, very well made parts. Fit and finish is very nice, accurate. They have a lot of their own parts. One thing about Rock River is you generally can custom do your rifle for them too. You can call up and say, I want to order this. A lot of people go after them because of some issues they had with the state of Illinois. And people they yell at me for why you're supporting them when they did this against a 2A. The reality is I test guns here. I don't test politics. So that rifle didn't do anything. So I have viewers who like them, and I have viewers who don't. So I review guns regardless of what the politics of the companies are, because I got viewers who do and don't like them. So I try to be impartial on that particular product. If I didn't write about companies that I didn't like, you never would have seen a Colt video on here.
Thoughts on HM Defense monoblock?
HM Defense monoblock. Can you look at one up for me? I deal with a lot of products. Sometimes it's hard to remember all of them. HM Defense. I think I've got one of their rails for my friend.
Oh, it's barrels.
Oh, okay. I see what it is. Never used one. I'm sorry to say I never used one.
Joey on Donorbox wants to know, when would it make sense to choose 45 ACP for a tactical combat pistol instead of 9mm or 40 S&W?
Well, 45 if you know your situation, you're proficient with it. There's nothing wrong with the 45 auto. When you look at an individual, as an individual and civilians, we can go look and say, what do I like? 940, 45, 10mm. We have that choice. Law enforcement military is different because you're picking a weapon for a large group of people that are very diverse. Some have Sasquatch, some have tiny hands, some have short fingers, some have long fingers. And some are experienced shooters and some are. You have to look at overall what's going to be best for a military or for a police department. When we're looking at it as individuals, then we can go what works for us. For as far as a 45 is concerned, if you have big enough hands and you say, hey, I want a Glock 21 or I want a HK USB or I want, it depends on what you're comfortable with. I carried a 45 for a long time. For me, it just got to the point where with the ammunition that was coming out, it just wasn't worth it carrying 13 rounds of ammunition or 10 rounds when I could carry 20. That's really what it came down to. If you would have come to me 10 years ago, I would have been carrying a 45. But with the advent of this newer ammunition, it just doesn't make sense to have the extra recoil with less rounds.
This guy just says, thanks for answering. Love your Colt history videos. He is the Colt guy for sure. What is your favorite Geisley trigger?
SSA.
Have you used the tactical development base plates yet? Have we answered this one? Tactical development base plates yet for the P365 magazine? And what is your opinion if you have?
No, my P365, I just have the actual, the SIG magazines. Because I'm carrying in a pocket holster, I have to go with the one that's most flush so it doesn't stick out, the holster and print in my pocket. So that's why I'm sticking with that factory one.
Do you think Springfield tried to pull a Sigma with their Hellcat on the P365, but skirt the line to avoid getting sued?
Oh no, that wasn't Springfield. This gun was designed in Croatia. All those the XDs are all made in Croatia off of their they're based off of their HS 2000. So no, I don't believe there's any. When you look at the two of them, there's no patent issues on there at all. They both use the Browning linkless locking system. They're both striker fired. Other than that, it's about they're different guns.
I don't know if you can hear him over here.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he's. Hopefully the mic's not picking up. I have a dog that does not like it when we do Q&As because that takes away lap time.
The Assault Terrier wants attention.
Doesn't the RRA use straight pins in their FSB?
Yeah, Colt is one of the few that use taper pins, and a lot of the reason for that is expense. When you drill, if you were to look at how Colt drills, they have one size drill on one side and one size on one side on the other side. The guys who do those roll pins, they just do one pass through. So the Mil-Spec calls for taper pins. And taper pins are better.
Thoughts on the next gen Spear by SIG?
Say again.
The next gen Spear by SIG.
Not familiar with a spear.
Can an ambidextrous safety be put on an HK USP 40 full size?
Oh yeah, they basically you have the oh no, they don't have an ambi. Theirs is reversible. Basically, you either have to go with the right or left hand side. They don't have they don't have an ambi for that one.
Can Colt make a comeback?
It depends on what management does. It's easy. In order for them to do it, they got to knock out that management, bring in new people, and redirect the company into new product development. Unless they do that, no way. I mean, this constant shit with keep bringing shit back, bringing this back, bringing this back, bringing that back. It's not going to sustain the company. It's not going to keep them doing military contracts, which they're set up to do.
Have you reviewed the Smith & Wesson AR-15 pistol yet?
No, I've only reviewed the M&P10 and the M&P rifle. I don't have any contacts at Smith & Wesson. I'm hoping to get to SHOT Show next year because there's several manufacturers I need to find. The problem is this industry, people switch jobs like you cannot believe. I'll pick up a whole bunch of cards at SHOT Show. I'll call in a month, and they're no longer with the company. It's the hardest thing of trying to keep contacts at manufacturers is people just go like crazy.
The Spear is the next gen 308 for Navy NSW.
Oh, okay. I've read the same things that you have. They've not made those guns available for anybody to shoot. They're not sending any of them out. Those are still prototypes that are kept within the military. So you're reading the same things that I am on that, and I don't really have an opinion on it, and I don't see it going anywhere. To be honest with you, I don't think that the new technology is going to give you that much of a benefit over what we currently have. The Army is continuing to try.
Sean sent the photos of it too.
The Army is continuing to try to make one rifle for all situations, and it's not going to happen. What you're going to use effectively in a CQB environment is different when you're going to be in a temperate environment where you have open fields or you're shooting from mountain to mountain. Using something that's heavy like that in a close quarter battle, it's hard to manipulate. It's loud. It's uncontrollable on full auto. And then of course using something you use in CQB, it won't reach out far enough. In my opinion, they need to go with two weapons platforms, and it's going to depend on what your area of operations is. And that's where you have a benefit of like the SCAR program, where you have a SCAR light and a SCAR heavy. A SCAR light, excellent CQB, jungle type weapon. Now we have to switch over to close or temperate, longer range. Then we switch over to SCAR H. It's like LMTs. We have the MRP for the AR-based cartridges, all different like barrels, operating systems. Then we switch over to the longer range. We have the MWS, where we have the longer barrels, heavier calibers with different barrel lengths. It seems to me that is a much better way to go than trying to find one rifle that's going to do everything.
What is the best Texas-made suppressor?
Don't know. Suppressors are difficult for me because I don't have an SOT, and my dealer does. He has an SOT, but if I want to test it, he has to be there, and it's very difficult. So basically, I have to buy the suppressors, and I have to go through the weighting and everything like that. So that restricts me on what suppressors that I can use, and I use primarily Silencer Co. Silencer Co. are the ones that I have the best luck with. If it I may very well be going out looking at some Texas-made suppressors now, because for me, I would love to support the home state here.
We got to convince Joe Mo that he's going to move Atlas over here to
That's
Texas now. Michael on Donor Box, thank you, Michael. He said, "What are your thoughts on?" I think it's Lugo Arms alien gun. Do you think its design will have any effect on future handguns? What problems, if any, do you foresee with its design?
I'm actually interested in getting my hands on one. Actually, I do recall making a phone call to those guys, and nobody got back to me. It's interesting, to say the least. I do want to get my hands on one.
So I guess stay tuned for that. What's your opinion on Shield Arms 15-round Glock 43X flush fit magazines?
I don't think one way or another. It's I have to say myself, I stick with OEM magazines on all my pistols, unless I'm going with Magpul magazines or ETS. Other than that, I stay with OEM magazines.
Do you think titanium parts for your lower receiver are the best parts you can buy for your AR?
I think they're expensive, and they don't. And no, let me say no. I don't think so. I've had them before. In fact, the last rifle I had was DS Arms. Their ZM4 had all the titanium parts on it. It was an extremely lightweight rifle. They're not really what you consider combat rifles. I stick with, for combat rifles, I want proven military grade parts, and I'm not worried about those tiny ounces that's going to save.
Someone's asking if the Texas suppressor bill has to pass the Fed.
No. This is the Fed in Texas. The feds
management in Texas.
The feds are merely suggestions.
They do what they want.
That's federal laws are suggestions here. They don't mean shit.
We need an Amish gun company.
Yoder Arms.
That would be interesting.
Funny enough, okay. I remember as a kid being in Pennsylvania, because my grandparents were from Lock Haven Mill Hall. A guy in Penn State knows where it is. And there's a lot of Amish in there. And every Sunday, the Amish would go right past my grandparents' house in their horse and buggies on their way to church. And I can remember going through the mountains with my grandfather in his truck and seeing Amish with modern, high-quality semi-auto shotguns hunting and everything. So it's amazing. They're not using muskets from back then. They use modern firearms.
Or slingshots.
Yeah.
Somebody said Yoder Tech.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of the JP silent capture spring? Is it good for gaming only or self-defense?
I have used it quite a bit, and I did take it out of the rifle that I had it in. According to JP, it's not full auto rated, but if you look at the guys who built the What Would Stoner Do rifle, they tested on fully automatic, and it did work. It certainly does get rid of the sound on the buffer. It's been my experience. If you're hearing a lot of boing on the spring, you pull the buffer out, pull the spring, flip the spring over, put it back on, and it'll decrease that noise quite a bit. It's one of those parts that has a lot more parts into it to go wrong. A standard buffer system, pretty much foolproof. There ain't nothing to go wrong unless the spring rusts and breaks. This one here's got parts to hold it together for it being captive like it is. It's a good toy. It's a good range toy. For as far as a defense gun, I think it's something that's really complicated, and something too much can go wrong. And if something goes wrong, the gun's down.
Colt on Donor Box, thank you, Colt. He said, PSA is one of the few places nowadays that I can find regularly in stock stripped lowers. Should I really feel that bad about the text on the side of my lower when every other part of the gun is, quote, more reputable?
No, lower receivers, as long as they are made right, they're not an issue. As long as they're made right, the holes are drilled in the right places, things line up, it doesn't matter. I've yet to hear anybody complain about an out of spec lower receiver coming out of Palmetto State or Aero Precision. It's where you worry about is the parts that are coming out are either a reject. So I wouldn't feel bad at it at all. If everything fits together like it's supposed to, go for it. It works.
Will PSA ever release the PA5?
Who knows? They've introduced so much stuff at the last SHOT Show, and pretty much none of it is available. I've been begging to get my hands on a Jackal, and they keep telling me they don't know when. And of course, this new Dagger. I don't know how Such got his hands on one, but I've been trying to get my hands on one for quite some time. Can't get it. And they're AKs vaporware. They have so many new products, but they're not producing any of them.
Hopefully, with things going back to normal, things will start to clear up some. What is your opinion on the Ops Core amp with Nfmi hearing protection?
I never used it. I love my. I have my 1991 issue GI plugs, and I have my Axle hearing protection that I use now. Those are the ones that I use.
Have you ever tested 9mm or 45 TU tumble upon impact ammo, or is it just a gimmick ammo or hollow point?
Not use that one specifically, but in order for it to tumble on impact, it has to not be very stable to begin with. So that's not something that I would generally be interested in. You want your 45 ammunition to expand. You want to have a thinner jacket on it so it will expand on impact and it won't over penetrate. There's a lot of different schools of thought on penetration. You have the FBI, what they have for their criteria, versus what I say what mine is. FBI criteria is far more geared towards barrier performance. Mine's more geared towards terminal performance, because from my experience in 10 years in the forensics, I don't think I ever had a SWAT shooting where it went through a barrier. They were head-on shots. So given that information, why would I want to get a round that's more apt to over-penetrate and not take the target down than to use a round that will take the target down? For instance, the SWAT team that I worked with in Rochester, I was also working forensics at that time. They were looking for a new round. They went with the 11.5-inch barrels, Colt to Commandos. What round do we want? So you want a 77 grain OTM Mark 262. And he goes, well, that doesn't meet the FBI's protocol. I said, I want you to look through your records, and I want you to tell me over the last 10 years how many of your engagements were through a target beyond that has barrier in front of them. They got back to me and they said none. I said, okay, so would you rather have a round that will take that target down, have less? It's less apt to have any to go through and less apt to have collateral, or have a round that penetrates and have it do less damage and go through it and have potential collateral damage? And I guess they saw it my way. And then the first shooting that they had was a pit bull. I remember I got the email from Aaron, and he said, "I've never seen a dog drop like that." They went into a servo warrant, and a guy had a hold of this pit bull that was going nuts. Aaron told him, says, "Take control of your dog." He smiled at my buddy and then let the dog go. The dog came one round, went and hit his neck, came right out of his ass. The dog just dropped. He said he had never had a dog that dropped like that. That was a Mark 262 Black Hills ammunition. So if that would have been, one of these barrier rounds, there's a good chance he may have had to fire 2 or 3 times, because the bullet would not have come apart. It would have bored right through. You wouldn't have had the energy dump as quickly as you do with like a Mark 262. So that's there's many different ways of looking at it.
Carrie's over here making fun of me. Gregory was asking about Olight, and Carrie's like, Heather loves Olight. And then Greg thought that
I prefer Streamlight.
Olight was busting my balls, but it's the opposite. I probably busted their balls. Olight has been trying. They email me like daily. I literally say no. They keep trying to get us to do sponsored videos. Like, we don't do those. What do you think about this new product that we have coming out? I think nothing of it. I want you to stop emailing me. So you prefer Streamlight. So There you go. How has AR-15 parts compatibility changed over the years? I put a new Colt upper on an old Colt 1970s lower and it worked.
This is where we get into TDP, Mil-Specs. When you're talking about Colt parts, going back to you will be able to take a part from 1965 or 64 and put it in a gun manufactured today, because all those parts had to meet those drawings for interchangeability. Example, I was working at Colt. I had one of sent into me. Somebody sent me in an early chrome bolt carrier. It had to have been from a model 01. It was certainly one of the first ones. It didn't have a carrier key on it. So I walked down to manufacturing. I had them put a carrier key on it, threw a bolt in it, and threw it in a rifle. Burned through 3 magazines. So here's a part that was made 1965, working in at that time it was 2008. That's what all this when we talk about Mil-Spec is. You're making all the parts to the same drawings. Now, does that hold true for non-military parts? No. Non-military parts that have been reverse engineered? No. But if you're talking about actual military parts that are made to the military prints, you can take a bolt carrier from Vietnam and put it in a gun today. It'll work just as good as the ones that are made now. What's changed? Maybe we do a better chrome processing on the inside. Maybe we have a better process for securing the with different torque ratios for the carrier key. Maybe we have that change, but all the parts, they're all made the same way. You can take a bolt. Well, bolt you wouldn't want to, because you have the original bolts that were designed for the lower rate of fire that would break. Then we had the newer shot P ones. But you take a hammer, trigger, disconnector, throw them right in. Take a barrel nut, same thing. From the XM177s, no problem. And you could take a barrel. I've taken barrels from 1960 something guns and put them on brand new upper receivers. That's what Mil-Spec is all about, is that compatibility.
Gerald on DonorBox, thank you so much. He said, I have an LE6920 with a C-marked upper barrel and BCG and white paint dot on the bolt. Is this one of the, quote, real ones you trust your life to? Barrel says dated 12/12 and the serial dates to 2013 on Colt's website. Came with a carry handle, a side sling swivel, etc. Has all the same markings as my 2009, except no restricted, and it's marked M4 carbine. No cage codes or lack of markings, yep. Only C's.
That was back when Colt still was manufacturing parts in-house. It was right. They lost the contract at the end of 2011. So they were still completing contracts for the next couple of years. So they were still making those parts in house. So yeah, you got one of the ones that's a actual Hartford Horsey.
Jared says he just got his Mark 12 for Monty at Centurion and used the SAS code.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm glad that you saved a little coin there.
You'll love the gun too.
Yeah, those Centurion codes are still active. They're in the description boxes of our videos. It's 3% off complete rifles, 5% off uppers and lowers, and 10% off everything else. So those codes are there if you guys want to save a few bucks. But we're going to shut it down for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for bearing with me with some of the trolls. But we'll see you again soon, guys.
Take care.